I wasn't expecting the text, not 3 weeks after the funeral, not in that tone. Family meeting, Sunday, 3 p.m., be on time, no subject, no explanation. Just that. I stared at it on my phone as I sat alone in my apartment in St. Louis. The lights dimmed the city's hum outside my window. It was from my mother, and the lack of warmth said everything. My name is Emily Barrett, and I was the only grandchild who spent every summer of her childhood in a warehouse learning how to read invoices before learning to drive. My grandfather, Samuel Barrett, built Barrett Timber and Concrete Company with his own 2 hands. Literally. He used to tell me, "Your first nail tells you more about life than your first paycheck." And now he was gone. The family house hadn't changed. Red shutters, manicured lawn, a porch swing that still groaned in the wind like it missed someone. But something was off. Even before I walked through the door, I could smell the performance waiting behind it. The moment I stepped inside, it felt wrong. Not the air, not the lights. The arrangement. My sister Lindsay sat on the edge of the floral couch, eyes fixed on her lap like she'd just failed an exam. My younger brother Tyler looked up once, his eyes bloodshot, but said nothing. My stepfather Ron stood near the fireplace, arms folded like a gatekeeper. And 2 strangers in slick suits sat comfortably in the chairs our dad used to call the serious seats. My mother Deborah stood, lips pulled into that social smile she wore at every PTA event, wedding, and charity brunch. It never reached her eyes. "Emily," she said, "this is Mr. Calhoun and Mr. Bates. They're family advisors." Advisors. That was the word she chose. One of them stood to shake my hand. I didn't move. Instead, I looked around, already calculating. This wasn't a conversation. This was a production. A sales pitch, dressed in grief and collared shirts. I sat down in the only empty chair deliberately placed across from everyone else, like I was on trial. "Would you like coffee?" Mom asked. "No," I said, placing my leather folder on my lap. "I'd like to know what this is about." She gave me a sugary smile. "Because we're family. And your grandfather would have wanted us to work together." I paused. And that's when I knew this wasn't a get-together. This was a takeover. They hadn't been able to control Grandpa when he was alive. But now they thought they could reshape his memory, his legacy, maybe even rewrite the last thing he ever gave me: everything. They didn't know I'd come prepared. The day of the will reading had been quiet, eerily quiet. We met at the old law office Grandpa had trusted for decades. Dark wood panels, heavy leather chairs, and the kind of silence you only get in places where serious things happen. Mr. Franklin Moore, the family attorney, was already seated at the long table when we arrived. A man who always smelled faintly of cologne and old books. Mom wore black silk and oversized sunglasses like a soap opera widow. Lindsay dabbed at her eyes with a tissue she barely used, and Tyler looked like he'd been pulled out of a dream and dropped into the middle of a stage play. He kept shifting in his seat, clearly uncomfortable. I sat straight, my hands folded in my lap, waiting, knowing. Mr. Moore began reading. First, the minor bequests. A donation to Grandpa's college. A small trust for an old foreman. Then, with a pause, he cleared his throat and read, "To my granddaughter Emily Grace Barrett, I leave the remainder of my estate, including, but not limited to, all remaining shares in Barrett Timber and Concrete Company, my investment accounts, all properties, and personal effects." The room didn't go quiet. It froze. Mom's sunglasses slid up onto her forehead as she barked, "This is a joke. Read it again." "I've reviewed it many times," Mrs. Barrett, Mr. Moore said gently. "Your father's wishes were clear," Lindsay gasped. Tyler rubbed his hands together, not saying a word. "He loved all of us," Mom whispered. "He wouldn't do this." But he had. That day, I wasn't just Emily anymore. I was the legal heir to a company, a fortune, and a legacy. One I had earned not just by blood, but by presence. By knowing what mattered to him. Outside in the parking lot, Mom came up to me, soft-spoken but deadly. "Just sign everything over," she said. I'll divide it up fairly. You won't have to deal with any of it. It's what he would have wanted. I said nothing at first. My heart was pounding, not with fear, but with the weight of what I had to carry now. I chose my words with care. I need time to think. Her eyes narrowed. This isn't yours, Emily. It's ours. Family money. Family business. That's not what Grandpa said, I replied. And then just like that, the mask slipped. Her voice sharpened. He was manipulated. You spent too much time alone with him. He wasn't well, but he had been. I remembered the last day I spent with him in his stud 6 months before he passed. He looked me in the eye and said, "They're going to hate this, but I didn't build this for them. I built it for the one who understood what it cost." It wasn't praise, it was a warning. That night, the messages began. First, a text from Lindsay. "Please don't let this destroy everything. We're still your family." Then Mom. "One day, when you have kids, you'll understand. Family comes first." Even Tyler, who rarely sent more than 2-word texts, sent one at 1:17 a.m. Why? By morning, voicemails had piled up. Messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. "Emily, your mother is devastated. She always said you were the grounded one. You should be ashamed, after everything she's done for you." And there it was, that word ashamed. They tried to make it stick, but they didn't see the late nights Grandpa and I spent combing through ledgers. The holidays I spent walking warehouse floors instead of sipping cider. They didn't understand that what I inherited wasn't money. It was memory, trust, and intention. But in the court of family opinion, that didn't matter. 2 days later, Tyler showed up at my apartment, no call. Just his slumped figure in the lobby caught on the security cam. He looked smaller than I remembered, like he'd folded in on himself. When I opened the door, he didn't step inside. "I'm not here to fight," he said. "Okay." He looked up at me, his eyes raw but focused. "Mom's unraveling. She's calling realtors. Says she needs to refinance the house before you freeze the assets." I blinked. "I haven't frozen anything." "She doesn't believe that," he muttered. "She thinks you're already trying to bury her. I just thought you should know." Then he left. No hug, no handshake. Just turned around and walked down the hallway like he didn't know where he belonged anymore. That night, my boyfriend Aaron showed up with takeout and soft eyes. "I want you to meet someone," he said. "Her name's Rachel Levin. She's a probate lawyer. Went to law school with me. She doesn't like drama, she handles protection." I didn't answer, but I nodded. The next morning I called Rachel. Her office was a calm space above a flower shop in downtown Clayton. No glass walls or marble desks. Just warm light and peace. After hearing my story, she sat back, fingers steepled. "You're already in the middle of a family pressure campaign. That's common. But based on the will and what you've described, you're on solid ground, legally." "I don't want a war," I told her. "I just want it to stop." "Then we prepare," she said. "Document everything, messages, calls, visits, and under no circumstances sign anything." It sounded simple, until the next message came. A photo of Mom at a patio furniture outlet, captioned "Retail Therapy Through Grief." Number self-care. Later that same day, another message. "I can't afford the electricity this month. I thought you should know." That's when I started printing everything. The formal text arrived 2 days later. Sunday, 3 p.m. At the house. "Let's resolve this. Bring your paperwork. No signature, no emoji. Just a time-stamped landmine." Rachel didn't like it. "Feels like a trap." "It is," I said. "But I'm not walking in blind." She offered to come with me. "I need to do this myself," I told her. "But I want you nearby. One word from me, and you come in." 60 seconds, she promised. "Text me." I arrived at 2:59 p.m. sharp. The porch smelled faintly of Mom's perfume, sweet too thick, probably applied after her fourth outfit change. She opened the door before I could knock. "Emily," she sang. Right on time. She'd curled her hair and smiled like she was announcing a product launch. Inside the living room looked like a staged courtroom. Lindsay sat upright on the edge of the couch, knuckles white around a throw pillow. Tyler sat beside her shoulders, hunched eyes on the floor. Ron leaned by the fireplace, jaw clenched, arms folded like the bouncer he always played in family fights. And then there they were, Mr. Calhoun and Mr. Bates again, seated like they belonged there. Not lawyers, not mediators, just wolves in tailored suits with smiles that cost extra. Emily Mom said sweetly. "These gentlemen have kindly offered to help us find a mutually beneficial solution to this situation." I didn't reply. I didn't even glance at them. I walked to the only available seat, a high-backed dining chair, placed right in the center across from all of them. Interrogation seating. Classic. I sat down, laid my folder neatly on my lap. "Would you like some coffee?" she asked again, like we were neighbors discussing curtain rods. "I'm fine," I said. "Let's get to it." Mr. Calhoun cleared his throat. "We're here because your family is deeply concerned about the emotional strain this has created. No one wants a legal dispute, not when your grandfather's clear intention was unity." I let the silence hang for a beat. "He wrote a will." Mom jumped in quickly. "And no one's disputing that, sweetheart. But surely you agree it would be fairer, more loving to divide everything equally. Fairness wasn't in the will either." Mr. Bates pulled a stack of papers from his briefcase and slid them across the table. "This is a voluntary redistribution agreement. You keep a healthy 20%. The rest gets reallocated among family members, as frankly your grandfather always intended." I glanced at the heading. Legalese boilerplate. But it was all smoke. "Intended by whom?" Lindsay finally spoke, her voice shaky. "He wasn't himself, Em. Grandpa was sick, confused. He didn't mean to cut us out." "He didn't cut you out," I replied calmly. "He just didn't hand you something you didn't earn." Tyler stirred beside her. "Mom says if we don't sort this now, we could lose the house." I turned to him. "Why is that, Tyler? Did someone take out another mortgage?" For just a moment, Mom's face cracked. Just a flicker. But I saw it. Then it snapped back. "Emily, don't do this." "Mister." Calhoun leaned forward. "It would be unfortunate if this matter escalated into court. Claims of undue influence could cloud the estate's standing. Reputation matters." There it was, the threat, wrapped in polite diction and polished shoes. I placed my hand slowly on my folder. "I'd like to clarify one thing," I said, looking directly at Ron, my stepfather, the man who once told me I was too serious to be likable. "6 months ago," I continued, "you told Grandpa's nurse you'd already put down a deposit on a vacation property in Naples." Ron's mouth twitched. "That was with inheritance money. You hadn't received it yet, wasn't it?" His face tightened. "I have a recording," I added. "And the emails." I opened my folder. The first page, Grandpa's handwritten ledger. In his tight angled script, loan to Deborah, minus $30,000. Claimed for Tyler's tuition. Cruise. She thinks I don't know. The next page, an Instagram screenshot. Mom is sipping champagne on a sun deck. Caption: deserved this. Number blessed. I slid them across the table. Still feel like drawing up paperwork. They didn't answer. Mom stood so abruptly that her chair screeched against the hardwood. "You ungrateful." I didn't flinch. I slid out another paper. May 12th. You told Grandpa that Lindsay needed emergency dental surgery. He gave you $20,000. I turned to Lindsay. You were in Phoenix that weekend, right? Spa retreat. I remember the monogrammed robes. Lindsay's face drained of color. She didn't speak. "Emily, this is low," Ron growled, digging through a dead man's notes to twist him against his own family. "He wasn't confused," I said. "He was tired. Tired of pretending not to notice. That's why he documented everything. Then I pulled out the last piece. A sealed envelope, slightly worn. Grandpa's looping cursive on the front. For Emily. If they come for it. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. The room shifted. Calhoun straightened his tie. Bates closed his briefcase. Miss Barrett, he said, we were told this would be a cooperative conversation. It never was. And you're not legal counsel. You're pressure brokers. I turned to my mother. You didn't tell them I already have an attorney, did you? Her eyes narrowed. She's in a car outside, I said. One word from me, and she walks in. The two men rose like synchronized swimmers. We'll excuse ourselves, Bates mumbled. We were unaware of any legal representation. They left without shaking hands. Mom's face was marble. This isn't over, she hissed. Actually, I said, rising, it is. I gathered my documents deliberately slow. I'm not signing anything. I won't enable your spending. And I won't let you rewrite the past. You owe us. I owe Grandpa. Then, for the first time, Tyler stood. Everyone froze. Even Ron. I didn't know, he said quietly. About the cruise. The spa. That you used my name to get money from him. He looked at Mom. You said Emily was selfish, but you lied. About everything. Tyler, sit down. Number. The word cracked like thunder. Then he turned to me. Can I come with you? I nodded. Let's go. Ron took one step forward. You little, I raised my phone. This conversation's been recorded. He stopped cold. Tyler and I left the room. Behind us, the door slammed hard enough to rattle the porch light. But for once, I didn't look back. Tyler didn't speak much during the ride back to my apartment. He sat in the passenger seat, both hands tight around the seatbelt like it was the only thing holding him together. His eyes stayed on the road ahead, even when we stopped at red lights. Like if he looked at me, he'd fall apart. When we reached my building, he followed me upstairs without asking. You're on the couch, I said, unlocking the door. It folds out. Sheets are clean. He nodded quietly. Thanks. We didn't talk about what had happened. We didn't need to. That night we just existed. I made chamomile tea. He drank it. I read old emails. He stared at the ceiling, blinking like his thoughts were too loud to silence. But the silence between us wasn't heavy. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was a relief. By morning, I had a plan. We drove out to Grandpa's house together, the one I now legally owned but hadn't set foot in since the funeral. The yard was overgrown. The porch creaked. But the air still smelled like cedar and coffee grounds. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, my breath catching as the memory hit me in waves. I didn't head to the living room or the kitchen. I went straight to his study. The desk was untouched. Stacks of notebooks lined the shelves. And in the center drawer, just where I remembered, was his journal. I flipped through it, page after page of names, numbers, projects. His sharp, practical handwriting dance makers, the margins. There was even a note about a new supplier he was considering, scribbled just 2 weeks before he passed. Near the back, I found something I hadn't noticed before. A fresh entry written between the margins. Emily has what Deborah never learned: restraint. We'll file it with the probate court as supplementary evidence. She handed me the form to sign. I did so without hesitation. Then we started something else. Tyler had dropped out of school a year ago. Said he needed time to figure things out, but everyone knew it was because of Mom's financial mess. He never talked about it, but I remembered how he used to watch those architecture shows, sketching buildings on napkins. I want to create a small education trust, I told Rachel. For him, no strings. Just enough to finish his degree. She looked at me carefully. That's generous. And smart. It keeps you clean. I signed the paperwork. When I got home, Tyler was on the couch with one of Grandpa's old trade magazines in his hands. You know, I said, leaning against the doorway. Grandpa always wanted to expand into sustainable materials, green lumber, eco-friendly concrete. But the board kept dragging their feet. Tyler looked up. He used to rant about that during dinner. I smiled. He wasn't wrong. He set the magazine down. Why are you telling me this? Because I said I need someone to help me build it. His eyebrows shot up. Are you serious? I nodded. A real internship. Real work. No handouts. Just a place to start if you want it. For a moment he said nothing. Then a slow smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. It was soft. Earnest. Not the smile of someone who'd won something, but the kind you give when someone finally sees you. I'd like that, he said. We toasted with cold mugs of tea, his nearly empty mind forgotten. But the gesture mattered. We were rebuilding. Not the way Mom would have wanted with charity masks and credit card miracles, but something quieter, something real. That week I reopened the warehouse. It was like stepping into a living memory. The scent of wood, the drone of forklifts, the echo of instructions, shouted across steel rafters. It was all there waiting. I didn't stand in the background this time. I walked the floor with purpose. Employees, people who'd worked for Grandpa for 30 years, nodded as I passed. No one questioned why I was there. They already knew. Tyler joined 2 days later. Showed up in jeans and steel-toed boots, not knowing if he was supposed to shake hands or grab a clipboard. You'll shadow Ed for the first week, I told him. He knows every inch of this place. He nodded and got to work. No complaints. No shortcuts. In the evenings we talked, sometimes about Grandpa, sometimes about nothing. But the silence between us had changed. It wasn't just peaceful now, it was warm. One night, while we were going over old business plans, he paused and said, "Do you think she ever really loved him, Mom?" I didn't answer right away. I think she loved what he could give her, and hated when he stopped. Tyler looked down. She doesn't text me anymore. She will, I said, when she needs something. He nodded and we left it there. Lindsay reached out once, sent me a photo of an old birthday card Grandpa had written me when I turned 12. You're the heartbeat of this house, it said. She added no caption. I didn't reply. But I didn't delete it either. Some doors stay cracked open. Not because I expect anything, but because I refuse to become as closed off as they once were. 1 year later, the sign above the building changed from Vance Materials to Vance and Barrett. Not for show, not for ego. Just a quiet nod to the chapter we were building. We didn't host a ribbon cutting or print up new business cards. We got to work. The eco division was Tyler's now. He led small but growing initiatives, recycled composite materials, low-impact lumber, and sustainable insulation. It wasn't flashy, but it was real, tangible. Grandpa would have loved it. Tyler worked with a quiet determination I'd never seen in him before. He asked questions, stayed late, took notes, earned respect the way Grandpa had taught me through action, not noise. Sometimes I'd catch him lingering by the rafters staring at the same catwalks Grandpa used to pace. Like he could still hear the footsteps. You okay, I'd ask. And he'd just nod. Just remembering. We still lived under the same roof most days. My apartment had become something of a headquarters. Files in the living room. Coffee mugs are on every surface. Sometimes we argued about logistics budgets and his tendency to overspend on testing materials, but it never stuck. Friction means the gears are moving. Lindsay sent a birthday card that spring. No return address. Just a short message. Hope you're still doing what Grandpa believed you could. She didn't sign it. I didn't write back. But I kept it. Mom never showed up again. Her number went silent. Her Facebook page disappeared. Word was, she moved out of state. Palm Springs, maybe. Or Scottsdale again. Wherever it was, she vanished like a woman who had worn out her last disguise. And I didn't go looking. Not because I hated her, but because I had finally learned how to stop bleeding for people who only show up when they smell money. Grandpa's study became mine. I didn't change much. His old desk stayed. I added a few plants, a new lamp. Tyler built a shelf for the Eco Division manuals, and on the far wall I framed a page from his journal, the one with the words he never got to say aloud. If she chooses to lead, this business might survive me. If she chooses to love it, it may outlive us both. That was my compass. The company didn't become an empire overnight. There were hard months. Moments I doubted myself. Late nights when I stood at the whiteboard, dry erase marker in hand, unsure whether I was solving problems or just creating new ones. But every single time I kept going. Because I wasn't just protecting a business. I was protecting the reason behind it. Grandpa never left me a pile of gold. He left me blueprints, ledgers, tough lessons scribbled in margins, and whispered over warehouse coffee. He gave me something my family never understood. Not power, but clarity. The clarity to walk away from people who pretend to love you only when your pockets are full. The clarity to say no and not flinch. The clarity to recognize love when it looks like sacrifice, not charm. I never told Tyler everything Grandpa said in that last conversation. I didn't need to. But one night, we were walking back to the truck after a late inspection, and he stopped. "Do you ever miss them?" he asked. I thought for a moment. "I miss who I hoped they could be." He nodded. "Me too." We stood there a while under the buzz of the parking lot light. Not saying much, just being quiet together. A few months later, we launched our first community partnership, eco-friendly materials for low-income housing in neighboring counties. It wasn't a press release moment. It was just a handshake deal, a firm delivery date, and a lot of mud on our boots. We celebrated with gas station hot dogs and warm soda in the parking lot. And I swear it meant more than any gala ever could. Some legacies live in headlines. Ours lived in lumber and ink, in handwritten notes and shared silences. Tyler once said, "I don't think people get it. You didn't inherit a fortune, you inherited a fire." He was right. And I carried that fire carefully through every voicemail I didn't return, every door I didn't open, every boundary I refused to let crack. I wasn't trying to destroy what came before me. I was trying to save what was left of it. The kind of inheritance you can't spend. The kind that either makes you or breaks you. The kind built in sweat, defended with silence, and handed down not through blood but through belief. When I refused to sign over my grandfather's legacy to my mother, I walked into a storm I had silently predicted all my life. That day, in the living room facing polished smiles, legal threats wrapped in velvet and years of buried manipulation, I made a choice not to fight for power, but to honor the man who taught me what it meant to build something that lasts. With Rachel by my side, and Tyler finally seeing the truth through the fog of family myth, I was no longer alone. We built something stronger than inheritance. We rebuilt clarity. My mother vanished. My sister softened but stayed distant. And Tyler, he found purpose where he once felt like an afterthought. Together, we reopened Grandpa's business and gave it new life grounded in sustainability, integrity, and steady, deliberate leadership. I didn't come away from this story with applause. I didn't need it. What I gained was far better peace, strength, and a legacy not just preserved but transformed. Some stories end with thunder. Mine ended with soft light filtering through the study window, the sound of forklifts echoing outside, and the quiet assurance that I didn't just inherit a name, I lived it forward. Grandpa was right. I wasn't always loved for doing what was right. But I slept at night. And sometimes that's the best kind of victory there is.